Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at this little guy right here, Crazy Creatures from Dr. Doom. It is a game designed by Michael Schacht, put out by Stronghold games, and it's a very small card game that, in my estimation, will replace Uno. Like I needed something to replace Uno with anyway. I don't own Uno. But, you know, would be, if you have somebody that just loves the snot out of Uno, this is a game that you could probably pull out and say, hey, let's try this instead, and I think they'd really enjoy it. Let's go take a look at how it plays. So here I have a 4-player game of Crazy Creatures of Dr. Doom set up for you. And basically the whole point of this game is that players are trying to get rid of the cards that are in their hand and be the first person to do that. Now, if you are not the first person to go out, you're going to be taking these points that are denoted on the cards left in your hands. And if you do that, you don't want to be the person that has the most points. You want to have the least number of points. The person that goes out doesn't get any points, of course, and then everybody else adds up the skulls and crossbones that are on their cards, and that's how many points they take. A number of rounds equal to the number of players is played. Whoever has the lowest score at the end of those rounds is the winner. So during your turn, you can do just a number of different things on your turn. You can play a card, or you can basically pass. Now, how and where you're going to be playing cards and whether or not you have to pass is determined by the number of the cards and the numbers that they represent in your hand, and what side the machine cards are flipped on. These are double-sided, one with a minus side and one with a plus side. When you're on a plus side, you have to play a card that is equal to or greater than a card that is already there. If it's on the minus side, you have to play a card that is equal to or less than a card that is already there. So if you're the person that goes first, you pretty much have free reign. You can do whatever you really like to do. So maybe I want to get rid of some of these point cards first. And yeah, sure, I want to get rid of this guy first. So we'll play that next to there, just like so. Now the next person has to look in their hand, and they can choose to either play here or one of the other stacks. If you play one of the same number, you can flip any one of the machine cards of your choice. Or you can make someone draw a card from the reserve deck that is here, keeping in mind that you want to be the person who gets rid of their cards first. So let's say that with this person, we don't have very much green left, so we might want to keep that there, but we do have a good number of yellow, so maybe we want to play this like that. All right, and then the next person would take their hand and look at it and say, well, let's go ahead and go with, let's go with the 2. Let's make it hard for people to go downwards over there. And then over here, we can see, you know what? I want to get rid of this bad boy, so we're going to put that right here. And we continue going until somebody runs out of cards first. Now, briefly through the course of the round, I do want to explain one more thing to you, because these symbols are plus points for you at the end of the hand if you still have those cards in your hand. But these are called genetic mutations, and genetic mutations have a special rule to them where, as long as the color and the symbol here matches, you can always play a card down whether it follows this rule or not. So normally I would only be able to play a 1 here, but if somebody had a 6, which is also a genetic mutation of the same color, they could play it down here even though it breaks the number or the rule of being equal to or less than there. So genetic mutations are good things to keep in your hands because they give you the most freedom to play, generally speaking. So at the end of the round, player 2 here went out first, so everybody else reveals their hand of cards like so, and they take a number of points equal to the number of skulls that they have in their hand. So with this being the case, first player would actually get no points because they didn't have any skulls left in their hand. Over here, player 3 would get 1, 2, 3 points. Player 4 would get 1, 2, 3, 4 points. And so those scores would be tallied with 0, 0, 3, and 4. We would take all the cards, shuffle up, deal out 10, play a couple more rounds, and whoever had the least amount of points at the end of those rounds is the winner. So that is Crazy Creatures of Dr. Doom. Not a heavy game at all, not even close, very, very light. Feather light, I would imagine. It does have a slight tinge of strategy to it, though, because you do have to make choices on when to flip the machine cards, or do I want to flip a machine card or make somebody draw a card because they're getting low. Those are the kinds of strategic choices that you're going to have to make. You want to hold some cards up in your hand because they're easier to play in varying situations. Some of the cards are more difficult to play, and that's why they're worth more negative points at the end of the hand. So I see where there's a little bit of strategy here, but boy, is it so thin. And it's so light, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, I think this would be a shining example of a card game that you could pull out and play with somebody who has really never played board games before, only been playing those, maybe there's just those mass market games that are out there, the different card games that you could play. I already mentioned Uno. I think that's probably one of the closest things to it as far as how the game plays out and what you're doing on your turn. You're just playing a card. You're trying to match numbers, not necessarily numbers, but you're trying to match colors. You're trying to go in ascending or descending. You're making other people draw cards possibly. You're changing how cards can be played. There's a lot of similarities between this and something like Uno. So I think that this would be a good gateway experience for that kind of person. Beyond that, I don't see this hitting the table very often because, well, at least for me, because it is so light. There are other light card games out there that I'd much rather play. I'd rather teach somebody how to play a trick-taking game than something like this because it is too close for my taste to something like Uno. So with that having been said, I see that there is some merit here, but it's just not one that I probably will go to very often. But that doesn't mean that you won't like it. So I do challenge you, as I always do, try before you buy, but give it a look, give it a try. I think you might find a spot for it in your collection somewhere, depending upon the game group or the kinds of gamers that you go and play games with more often. So if you're mainly playing more often with people who are mass market type gamers or non-gamers, then yeah, you might have a definite spot in your collection for this. But if you're mainly playing with gamers or stuff like that, this might even be too light for a filler for them. So that is my thoughts on Crazy Creatures of Dr. Gloom. So yeah, I think it's cool. I like the 10. The artwork is nice and cartoony, but it's just a little bit too light for my tastes. So that's that. We'll see you guys on the flip side.